Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Lightsworn Yugioh deck profile for September 2024. We finally got the August 2024 ban list, or you could call it at this point the September 2024 ban list. And with it, we had a lot of cards hit on the ban list, cards like Skill Drain, Pot of Prosperity, but one really awesome card that we saw come off of the ban list was that Grass Looks Greener, a card that definitely does help the 60 card playstyle, being able just to make use of this card to fill your graveyard with a bunch of different monsters. And there's not more of a fun version of this deck than the 60 card Lightsworn version. And since we had new support for Lightsworns in Legacy of Destruction, I feel we're due for an update with Infinite Forbidden being in between now and when the set last came out. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters because we do have a lot of them to go through. For starting, we're running 3 copies of Lumina Lightsworn Summoner. Since we are running the 60 card version, we want to run max variety for a good bunch of the Lightsworn monsters. Lumina has a top 3 mill effect, but also you can discard 1 card to target a level 4 lower Lightsworn in your graveyard and special summon it. It is a soft once per turn, so if you have multiple Luminas, you can use this effect multiple times, and you just need the one other target. So you can also discard a Lightsworn monster and target the same one as long as there's another Lightsworn monster in the graveyard to use. And 3 copies of Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn. During main phase, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and then if any Lightsworn monsters were sent by this effect, it gains 200 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. And you can only use this effect of Raiden once per turn. And once per turn, during your end phase, send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. More mill power with Raiden being a level 4 tuner. It can also be used to summon out some of our synchro options with cards like Lumina when it's paired with it. And for some of our new 3-ofs for the main deck, 3 copies of Lightsworn Dragonling. If you have a Lightsworn monster in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card's special summoned, you can send 1 Lightsworn card from your deck to the graveyard, except for Lightsworn Dragonling. If this card's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 dragon monster with 3,000 attack and 2,600 defense from your deck to your hand. So then you have these search options for either your Judgment Dragon or your Punishment Dragon using this monster, but also just needing that monster in the graveyard to be able to summon out this resource onto the field, and then being able to send 1 additional card to the graveyard. Which one of those better cards to send would be the 3 copies of Wolf Lightsworn Beast. It cannot be normal summon or set. When it's sent from your deck to the graveyard, special summon it. Now, Beast and Fellis are some of the best cards to make use of the Grass Looks Greener playstyle, for the fact that if you just send multiple cards, and if the difference between your decks is the 20 card difference, there's a good chance you'll hit multiple Wolves and multiple Fellis off of the Grass Looks Greener play, for you then to special summon those resources back into the field. So 3 Wolf along with 3 Fellis. With this card, it must be special summoned by a card effect. It's sent to the graveyard, to the deck, by a monster effect. So you'll miss out on the Fellis special summon, sadly, with the Grass Looks Greener, but still having other mill options with our Lightsworn monsters. You can use cards like Lightsworn Dragonling to send it from the deck to the graveyard and gain that special summon as well. We have other, generic monsters that we also run that can make use of the Grass Looks Greener playstyle, but we're still going through some of the 3-ofs. So 3 copies of Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend. For the last of the 3-ofs for the Lightsworn monsters, you can place 1 other Lightsworn card from your hand on top of the deck to special summon this card from your hand, then send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card's sent from the deck to the graveyard, you can target 1 Lightsworn monster in your graveyard, except for Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend, and special summon it. So more special summon resources, but also just being able to replace cards to then reuse again for the send, especially if we open them up in our hand. With some of the lower numbers for our Lightsworn monsters being 1 Raikou, Lightsworn Fighter, 1 Lumina, and the 1 Minerva for just added send options and setup using these particular monsters also, and the Lightsworn monsters for their specific banish plays if we do want to properly summon out Punishment Dragon. For the actual dragons themselves, I'm running 2 copies of Judgment Dragon and 2 copies of Punishment Dragon just for more of the bigger numbers in the deck. There's a chance we could mill 1 of them, but then still want the search power with our Dragonling to be able to add the needed of the 2 dragons as well, relying on the banish power for Punishment Dragon and the graveyard setup for Judgment Dragon, and then being able to have more mill power with each, but also being able to pay 1,000 life points to shuffle into the deck all cards in the graveyards and all banish cards for recycling with Punishment, and then sending cards on the field to the graveyard with Judgment Dragon. Now, for some of the more generic monsters that we run in the deck also, I am running a small Bysteel engine just so we can make full use of the graveyard monsters that get sent there. Also, 1 Magnemite, 1 Baldrake, 1 Druisworm, and the 2 Saronir. You can honestly put in 2 Druisworm and replace one of the Saronir if you wish for this spot also. But just targets for your opponent's cards as well as your own for cards that are in the graveyard. Make them good because then you also have the Magnemite Search and the extra resources and send and set up for all the other ones. And along with more of the generic engines running in the deck, the 1 copy of Perform Age Trick Clown, the 1 copy of the Mad Hatter. I forget this one's name. Perform Age. Nope, it's gonna hit me just when I remember it. But we have the 3 damage jugglers as well. But you have the special summon option as well for your damage juggler being able to be set up in the graveyard. Trick Clown having the 1,000 life point spend. So better cards, I would say, for the mill option to the graveyard, especially with damage juggler having the add back power once it's in the graveyard. Also, for your other cards, it is also that additional setup that you can use with these monsters for adding those resources back to your hand and making use of the graveyard plays. And then also the 1 copy of Blackwing Zephyros the Elite for the bounce power to summon back from the graveyard, Electromagnetic Turtle for the battle phase end, and then the 1 Keldo Sacred Protector and the 1 Medora for more shuffle back power as well when they're in the graveyard to then interrupt some of your opponent's other plays. And then for the last of the monsters in the main deck, 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. Just a small hand trap to run. It doesn't come up often, but still just one to use potentially in your hand. We run 42 monsters total with this deck list. So moving on now to the spells. We're running 3 copies of Charge of the Light Brigade. You send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard to add 1 level 4 lower Lightsworn monster from your deck to your hand. So the best play is to have these cards set up for your search power, but also being able to just have more mill options as well for some of your other cards in the deck, and searching the specific Lightsworn monster that you may need using this card also. And then for more draw power, 3 copies of Solar Recharge, just so you have the discard of a Lightsworn monster to draw 2 cards, then send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So getting rid of that 1 Lightsworn monster in exchange for a draw 2 and a potential additional mill for those cards also. Now, the big card for the entire video is that Grass Looks Greener. If you have more cards in your deck than your opponent does, send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard so you have the same number of cards in the deck as your opponent. So, with a good majority of decks just running 40-card decks, you always have to check the difference between your and your opponent's deck. But drawing, so if you draw into your hand, you'll have the 55 cards. Your opponent draws into theirs, they'll have the 35 cards. That will be a 20-card difference for the most scenarios with this card. Being able to send 20 cards gives you a wide variety of engines to work with in your graveyard as well. That's why this card is really, really fun to use in this version of the deck. And also, to be able to search it out, 3 copies of Left Arm Offering. If you have 2 or more other cards in your hand, banish your entire hand, add 1 spell from your deck to your hand. You cannot set spell traps during the turn you activate this effect. So this is so you can search out the one of that we are running in the deck as well. It is a one of, and you want to be able to have that resource available to you so you can set up some of your other cards. You just need 2 or more other cards. So if you open up this card and the 4 other cards, you at least have those 2 other resources to make use of as well before you banish the other 2. With the other one-ofs for our spells being 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army, the 1 Foolish Burial, the 1 Reasoning, and the 1 Call by the Grave. Just a couple one-of techs. You have more send power with both Reasoning and Foolish Burial, and search power for some specific warrior monsters that you run in the lineup for your Lightsworn monsters. With the rest of the spells just being 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. I know we had Prosperity hit on the list, but it wasn't really something we ran in the deck anyway, since the extra deck is a big part of setting up a majority of our plays also. With the last of the cards in the main deck being 2 traps, 1 Lightsworn Aegis and the 1 Lightsworn Judgment. If you place this card on the top of your deck, if it was sent to the graveyard by a Lightsworn monster effect, you can add 1 Judgment Dragon from your deck to your hand. And with Lightsworn Aegis, you target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of Lightsworn monsters you control, negate their effects to the end of its turn, and if it's sent from the deck to the graveyard, you can set this card. More of that setup as well, just being able to send it off of that Grass is Greener to then be able to have an additional setup as well. And that is it for the main deck. As I said, it is a very large main deck. I don't often do 60 card deck profiles, but with this being the special case with the grass and the greener. For the synchro monsters, now moving on to the extract. One copy of Minerva, the Athenian Lightsworn. Lightsworn monsters you control cannot be banished by card effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Minerva once per turn. If this card synchro summon, you can send Lightsworn monsters with different types from your deck to the graveyard, up to the number of Lightsworn monsters you used as this card's material. And you can banish up to 4 Lightsworns from your graveyard to send them a cards on top of your deck to the graveyard. More mill power and protection for your Lightsworn monsters. The one copy of Judgment, the Dragon of Heaven. If you synchro summon this card, all materials must be the same attribute. Once per turn, if you have 4 more tuners with different card names in your graveyard, and you control this synchro summon card, pay half your life points, destroy all their cards in the field, being just another level 8 synchro variety version of Judgment Dragon. One Michael, the Art Lightsworn, for the banish 1,000 life points, and shuffle back recycle power for this card also. And our other synchros include 1 Fortune Lady Every, 1 Black Rose Dragon, and the 1 Psyframe Lord Omega. Just more of a generic lineup to use in the deck also. With our Xyz monsters being 2 copies of Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn. Mill and Destruction power off of this card, just needing 2 level 4 monsters, which can once again easily be done using your other cards in the deck. With the 1 copy of Evil Swarm Exciton Knight and the 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus to finish off the Xyz monsters. With our Link monsters being 1 Lena the Light Charmer Lustrous, 1 IP Masquerena, which surprisingly did not get hit on the list at least, but we did have Apollosa hit, so I guess that's fair there. The 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn and the 1 Boral Sword Dragon to finish off the Link monsters, with our only fusion monster in the extract being 1 Enlightenment Dragon. It must be special summon from your extract by banishing the above materials, 1 each from your field and graveyard, once per turn. Quick effect, you can banish 2,000 life points to banish all other cards on the field and graveyards, and once per turn during the end phase, send the top 4 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card's owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can add 2 of your banished monsters from your hand, 1 Judgment Dragon and 1 Punishment Dragon. Then you can special summon both, ignoring their summoning conditions. So a way to summon out this bigger boss monster, but then also being able to get out your 2 bigger boss monsters onto the field also thanks to it. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, I'd say the best way is just to show just the potential that you could have with that grass looks greener. You shuffle the deck so we know that we're milling a wide variety of cards to the graveyard as well. So with this card, you either have the search for the left arm offering or just opening up this card in your hand. But either way, if you have that spell or this one ready to go, then you'll have this card plus 4 additional unknown cards in your hand. You will then activate that grass looks greener, and this, once again, this scenario only comes up if your opponent has the difference in your deck between it and your opponent being the full maximum power of the 20 card difference. So then you'll send the top 20 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So as you can see, we've already hit the Wolf, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That is the scary fact of that grass looks greener. Sending off all of these cards, and from then and there, what we achieved from that is we have the 2 wolves that we summoned off of their own card effects. We have also the, once again, Fellas has to be sent with a Lightsworn effect, but we have the Zephyros to bounce from the graveyard. We have the Medora Interruption, and we have the 1,000 to spend for the Trick Clown, giving us those additional resources. Then we can have that special summon of the Trick Clown. We could have the potential bounce for it back to our hand, depending on what is in our hand to use for the setup as well. We have a normal summon, giving us a full field of resources on monsters just from that 1 send, which is the send investment you want to do with that grass looks greener to begin with, because that sets you up for so many different plays in the deck to be able to then use afterwards. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. If there are any other decks from the ban list that you think could be updated potentially and you'd like to see, definitely let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.